the silent vengeance. I never thought I'd find myself telling this story, but here I am, heart pounding as I recount the events that turned my life upside down. My name is Emily, and this is the tale of how I exacted revenge on someone who shattered my world. It all began 3 years ago when my brother, Jake, was killed in a hit-and-run. He was walking back from work, just a few blocks from our shared apartment in downtown Chicago. The police came, questions were asked, but the driver was never found. Jake was my rock, my protector since we were kids. His death left a void, an anger that simmered beneath my surface. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The case went cold, and with it, my hope of justice. But one day, while browsing through social media out of sheer desperation, I stumbled upon a post. It was in a local group, someone bragging about a close call with the law, about how they once sped through a red light and narrowly escaped some bad luck. The details were eerily similar to Jake's accident. The time, the place. My heart raced as I read the comments, one of which included a partial license plate that matched the police report. The user's name was Mark Henderson. A quick search led me to his profile, filled with pictures of cars, reckless parties, and an attitude that screamed entitlement. He was the type who thought he was untouchable. My grief morphed into a quiet, burning resolve. I started watching him, learning his routines, where he hung out, who his friends were. I gathered every piece of information like pieces of a puzzle, knowing one day I'd put it all together. I got a job at a local cafe where Mark was a regular. It was mundane, serving coffee and smiling at people, but it was my cover. Over time, I learned about his life outside of social media. He was a car salesman, used to manipulating people, taking them for a ride, both literally and figuratively. The irony was not lost on me. I knew I couldn't just confront him. That would be too easy, too quick. No, Mark needed to feel the weight of his actions, to live with the fear and uncertainty he had inflicted on me. I started small. I'd tamper with his car slightly, just enough to cause minor inconveniences, like a slow leak in his tire or a loose bolt here and there. I wanted him to feel the world falling apart piece by piece, just as mine had. Months passed, and Mark grew paranoid. His posts turned from boastful to anxious. He started talking about a curse on his life. I watched from the shadows, my grief now a dark companion, fueling my actions. Then came the night I decided to escalate. I had learned he was going to a big car show out of town where he planned to show off his latest acquisition. I knew how to get into his apartment. I had watched him long enough. I entered while he was away, using the key I had made from an impression. His place was a mess, but I wasn't there for cleanliness. I took his precious car keys, the ones he never let out of his sight. I drove his car to an abandoned lot on the outskirts of the city, where I knew cameras wouldn't catch me. I didn't destroy it. Instead, I made it disappear. I gave it to a chop shop I had researched, ensuring no trace would lead back to me. When Mark came back, his panic was palpable. He lost his mind, posting everywhere, offering rewards, accusing everyone. But no one had any answers, and the police had nothing to go on. Days turned into weeks, and the lack of his prized possession ate at him. I could see the cracks in his facade online, his life spiraling as he lost deals, friends, and his reputation. But I wasn't done. I started sending him anonymous messages. Cryptic at first, then more direct, hinting at his secret, his sin. I made sure there was no way to trace them back to me. Each message was like a needle poking at his conscience, reminding him of that night when he chose speed over a life. The final act was the hardest. I knew I had to confront him, not with violence, but with the truth. I arranged a meeting, under the guise of someone who had information on his car. We met in a public place, a busy park where I knew there would be witnesses, but no one close enough to hear our conversation. When I revealed who I was, the color drained from his face. I didn't need to say much. My presence was enough. I told him I knew what he did, that justice had found him, albeit not through law. I left him there, shaking, with the weight of his guilt finally catching up. Mark never recovered. His life fell apart more publicly. He lost his job, his friends deserted him, and the guilt seemed to consume him. I watched from afar as he became a shell of the man who thought he could escape consequences. I don't regret what I did. Justice might have failed Jake, but I made sure Mark Henderson paid in his own way. My revenge was silent, slow, and complete. I carry Jake with me every day, not just in memory, but in the actions I took to ensure his death wasn't just another statistic, another cold case. This is my story, one of vengeance, one of loss, one of a sister's love for her brother. And now, I share it with you, hoping it serves as a chilling reminder that not all debts can be dodged, and not all stories end with the law.